Hello and welcome back to the workshop project, where I'm jumping straight back into where we left off last time. Now if you remember, I already have all the wood that I need to finish off the frame. I've also plotted out the rough height that I want the workshop roof to be at, and as I am going for one of these apex style roofs, it's a bit more detailed in terms of the frames I need to make and everything I need to cut out. So I'm about to start work on cutting all the rafters down to size so I can fit them tomorrow, and this is an extraordinarily well drawn plan, of course, how I'm going to do it. I have got a speed square and a roofing square and stuff like that, but I'm not going to be using them because I have figured it all out using maths. The speed square and roofing square and stuff I've got is only in inches, and I've done it all metrically just because it's going to fit up better with what I've got going on. And because I wanted to figure it out based on the height of the roof already rather than, you know, the pitch of the... So what I was trying to explain there before clearly losing the will to live was I wanted to figure out all the measurements based on the height at the midpoint of the roof rather than the angle that the roof's at. And for some reason, everywhere online only really does it by the angle or the lengths of the rafters. But I ended up coming across a site where I could just pop everything in, play around with it on sliders, and then it gave me a really handy template which I copied over to some paper, marked up on the wood for a template piece, which I then transferred over to every other rafter that I cut, so they'd all be the same. So my plan for getting the rafters up is first I'm going to start with the beam going right the way along the roof. And I'm going to do that by putting two bits of wood sort of either side of this one, fastening it in. I'll take off the top of the door frame so it can screw directly into the frame. And then I'll put another beam just across those horizontally at the height that the roof's going to be, so that for the long piece of wood, when it comes to actually putting it in, hopefully just slot in really nicely, and then it can be screwed up really nice and tightly. I'm not going to bother about mitering the top as well because it's just going to be easier cutting it in place. So after that I used some offcuts and spaced them apart enough to get a long beam across the top, and it did end up looking a little bit culty. But it did the trick, and then all I needed to do was draft in some help and get the rafters attached. So this is what we've done with the rafters so far, and the building inspector has come. Hello. Meow. What do you make of it? That middle one still needs to go on, but we're getting there with it. And for those middle rafters, we cut out a notch in both of the posts so they could sit snugly inside, and we could then screw them in from both sides, so it was really, really solid. The bird's mouths have a little bit of extra room there, so when the feather edge goes in, it's going to go right the way up to the top of this wall, and then I'm going to invert a piece of feather edge and have that sitting in where the bird's mouth of the rafter is. And then it was just time to add the crossbeams. Now, you've already seen me cutting plenty of wood, and you can probably imagine what that looks like, so I'm not going to bore you with that. But basically what we did was just plonk them up, we drew down the line of where the rafters were sitting, took it off again, cut it, and then just plonked them on, screwed them in. So I've got all the crossbeams in now, and they look really, really good. They've been nicely cut out on the sides. There's an angle to go across.
And once those are all in place, I used some offcuts of 4x2 to extend the front and the back of the workshop just so the overhang was there a bit, and then we attached some long 4x2s to the outsides as well. So these are what the OSB is going to be screwed into, and it also does a really good job of just framing it all up and making it look more like a roof. And then for the very front of that little roof bit, I just cut out a nice mitre joint and put those together. And after all that nonsense, it was just about getting the OSB on the top of the roof. So once again, we used some really handy offcuts which we'd screwed on, going basically all the way around the outside of the frame. So this just meant that we could put the OSB on the roof and we wouldn't be worried about it sliding off and possibly getting damaged or hitting somebody or anything like that. And it just made it a lot easier to handle. And then it was just about trimming some ones for the top and getting those in. And the top ones were a little bit trickier, so I had to get on the roof to put them in fully.
Okay, so after a busy weekend, here we are. We've got the roof all in situ. We've got the OSB going all the way across as well. Got 2 roof joints as well that I've put in there just to make sure the middle wasn't going down.
And after all that fun, I was back by Malone doing the rest of it. So here I was just getting some roofing felt on, and it was a bit of a tricky thing to do just one person. It took quite a while to figure out the knack of doing this, but I ended up just being able to staple it in with these upholstery staples and then roll it along the top and staple it as I go.
Okie dokie, so I've got the membrane on. These are the panels, and I've gone really cheap on these. These are about £50 per box, and there's 14 panels in there. I'm also thinking for joining this up, thinking of buying a sort of either a flashing tape or something and just taping it up to that wood there, just so that nothing can get in between that bit going up to the roof for you know, insects or animals or moisture or anything. So the next plan is going to be to get these on. I do just need to measure up the sides of them just to see how far over each one's going to go. Some of these are damaged already as well. They've got dings in and dents in. So I will also need to sort through them to see, try and get the nicer looking ones on the side that we can see, and I'll conceal all the slightly dented or scratched ones on either side. I must also admit that I deliberately haven't put any OSB on these bits yet, because going up the ladder, this is the spiky bush. I should probably put it down a bit more, but I've got scratches all over my back as you let that tractor go past. And basically just allowing the OSB on the side not to be in just means that I've been able to get up the ladder and hold on to this side, hold on to the struts there, just to make sure I don't fall off. I'm now just going to put some wood going across the front so that I get the overhang for the panels right all the way down, so that any water dripping on these, landing on these from those lovely trees above, we're going to go straight into the gutter. It doesn't really matter if it's a tiny bit off, but it's just easier doing it if I can line it up to something immediately. And these are all, you know, perfect right angles as well. So if I'm lining it up on the side right and I'm lining it up on the bottom right, it's going to be absolutely fine. Anyway, I'm going to start another time lapse. Sorry, I'm a bit unimaginative. I've not got any awful GoPro footage or anything like that to share, but we will see. I suppose you'll definitely see in a minute. So.
And then it just came to putting the roof panels actually on the roof. And for those of you wondering what the string was for, that was literally just to work out the placement of all the screws going along. I wanted it to look okay because we can see this from above. So I marked out a little template on one of the pieces, and then I used that to drill in pilot holes for where all the screws were going. And then I put a piece of offcut on the side of the workshop roof just so I could square in the first roof tile. I then just overlapped each tile basically, screwing them in as I go. And if you're a bit squeamish, then skip forward a little bit. But I did have a little accident. The ladder had a little bit of a wobble, and I literally just brushed my arm against one of these tiles and it sliced it open. So I had to go and get that patched up before I could carry on. Anyway, I came back the next day, finished it all off without a problem.
Hello, building inspector. What do you make of it all? You're probably just figuring out how to try and get onto the roof, aren't you? These are all the panels for the other side. Got this side done. It looks really good actually. I'm very happy with it, considering it's only the cheap panels that I bought. And there's going to be flashing going all the way along the top, and then flashing going all down the sides. But this side, probably going to either put a wood or something panel or tape or something, and then the gutter's going to be attached to the wood here. Anyway, it's time for a bit of tea. Not even interested.
And here I am doing the other side. It took quite a long time to attach my phone to the tree, but I hope you enjoy watching this view of a nicely in-focus leaf and me in the background squabbling about doing some tiles in the middle of a bush. Now, I do have a bit of confession to make. When I was buying all the stuff for this, I sort of bought it as and when I needed it, rather than plotted everything out right at the beginning of the project. And after I bought all the panels that I needed for the roof, I then looked at buying the flashing, and it was extortionately expensive. It was ridiculously difficult to get hold of anywhere that would actually deliver it here for less than 150 quid. And then on top of that, each piece was about £100. I had actually bought in other things that I needed to finish this off. So instead of actually just waiting for that, I might have carried on doing a few things. And I didn't really think that would be a problem until it came to actually editing it, because I didn't know whether to try and just show you what I'd done up to this stage, or whether I keep all the roofing stuff together and then show what I do with all the feather edge next time. Because I've split this part off just to basically be everything to do with the roof. I'll go through all the other bits that I've done in the meantime in the next episode, so there'll be a jump back again to certain bits. Yeah, sorry about that.
One more quick little job I've got to do whilst I'm taking them all off is get the lead lining just going along there. So instead of buying a sort of wall side gable bit of corrugated iron which holds the gutter on, and buy this, well, I've got this lead tape. I'm just going to tape that on, see if that works, because if that does work, that's savings of probably about 50 or 60 quid per side. And then I can attach gutters, which is going to make splashing on the wall a lot less. Going to go and do the other side now. Not even sticking. I've got on the primer that's supposed to stick. I've got on this that's supposed to stick. Neither of them are sticking.
I tried and failed before to put lead over this bit. I put this primer on because people said if you put the primer on then it helps it stick, and that didn't work. But then somebody online has also said you need a heat gun to actually activate the adhesive for it. So I've got a heat gun here. I am going to see if that works. If it doesn't work, it's not the end of the world, because this primer that I've used for it is actually waterproof. And when I fix all the soffits and stuff, I'm actually going to use that paint to go on the wood that goes underneath them. So yeah, I'm just going to give that a little go now. Quest is just going to be shortening the sides there, using an angle grinder just to cut the sides down, just so I can put the barge flashing on when I've painted that and cut that down to size. So I'm going to have the barge flashing either side, meeting in the middle, and then I'm just going to have the ridge on top.
After doing all of those jobs, flashing still hadn't arrived, so I did a spot of guttering. So the reason I'd actually lent all of those spare roof panels up against the side of the workshop was when it rained, as now the whole of that roof is a catchment area, the rain was trickling down, landing quite heavily on the mud just below and then splashing onto the side of the workshop. So those panels are there just to prevent the rainwater from splashing on. However, with the addition of a gutter, obviously you can have something that could catch that water and then divert it off to a nice drain or water butt or whatever. So all I needed to do then was clear up a little space for a water butt to sit, tidy the side up so it looks a bit better, and then put in the little hanging arms so that the gutter is sloping down to where the butt's going to go.
Not even been able to get the water butt in yet, and it's raining, but at least it worked. it does look all right. The only thing that's annoying is there's like the wood sort of refracting on the underside of the gutter, so it looks like it's really warped in the middles, but it's not, because it's all flowing fine. I am back again on a different, less rainy day to fit this now. It definitely wasn't because I bought the wrong part that would have allowed downpipe to go into this water butt, but you know, that is going to go the other angle, obviously, down the wall. There'll be a little connector around there that connects it in with this, which will automatically fill that, and then once that's full, it will automatically let water come down. So after that, it's going to go alongside the bottom and feed into the drain, sort of French drain thing that I've got here. And then when all of that's in place, I'll get more stones, more gravel to sort of top it up. Oop. Quite literally a downpipe. To top it up, just to fill it up above the line there. And after that, that should be the exterior looking pretty good. So that's angled like that. Don't worry about all of the soffit and stuff. I'm going to be fixing all of that at another time. That's only a temporary thing in. I think I'm going to buy a plastic panel or something that goes forward. But it's going to connect in like that down there against the side of the wall there, and then it's going to just come down here. Got a grab on now, water diverter, so I think that way it's just going to be probably about there, the little tube going into this, and then once it's full up, the water level will make sure the water continues down the downpipe. It's going to get to there, and there's going to be a 90-degree bend, or 92-degree bend obviously, so that it doesn't pull. And that's basically just going to go then all the way down there into the little drainage area. There we go, that's all in place. So the only thing missing now is obviously the water butt's going to go here. There's a filled it up with some water just to make it a bit heavier. There's a tap there at the end, which this tube's going to go on. Other end of the tube's going to go on that. I do just need to cut it down to size. Then any water that goes through that is going to prioritise going to the water butt first, because of how this is shaped on the inside with the drainage. And then when this fills up with water, obviously, it blocks up the system in that, which will then just make it drain right down the pipe. And I'll set an angle there, this way into what is loads of drainage there.
And then finally, I found somewhere that could sell the flashing for less than the price of the Artemis 2 program. And instead of spending an extra £200 on flashing that was the same colour as the roof tiles, I bought some green ones instead and just spray painted them grey.
So I've got all the barge flashing here, and I've got one piece of the ridge just there, just a bit bigger. And it's in a lovely green colour, which doesn't match the roof at all, so I'm going to spray it now. You see this being the top of the roof, there'll be an overlap there with the other side going on here, but then the bottom side is going to need to be trimmed flat, sort of like that, just so that it can wrap around on the roof.
I did also feel a little bit like Professor Chaos whilst doing this, but it was quite fun. And it was quite a splotchy finish as well, because it was only cheap stuff, but, you know, it's not the end of the world. And then it was just doing the same thing for the ridge flashing.
I'm now going to get the ones that have dried onto the roof, and I think I'm actually just going to situate them as they are there and bolt them in place. And once they're in place, I'm then going to use an angle grinder or something just to cut around the sides where they go up to the gutter. So I think it's going to look neater rather than trying to measure it all up. I'm just going to take a lot longer. And then if I need to, I'll just go around painting the outsides. Alrighty, so I've just started putting these little side sort of bolts in, and all that's doing is holding this in place really. I've got them equally distributed from the top there, and I've just put the top piece on, the apex sort of ridge flashing piece on, just to see where the centre was roughly. And that is, this metal piece is not going to be trimmed up there. The other metal piece that's going on there, the other piece of barge, I'm going to slice down so that it's roughly the same as where that masking tape is. And then it's going to be the same here. I just thought it would be easier to get it in place and then cut it afterwards. So I've taken this side gutter off, and you can see I'm just going to cut it with an angle grinder just to get that all nice and level. There will be a cap gutter as well, so there'll just be, and again, I'm not fully decided on if I want to do this yet. Obviously the gutter's going to come out further than this, so the side, it's going to be blocked by a piece of gutter there, and then I might even cut the bottom so that it sort of squares it off a bit. I've not decided if I want to do that yet. I might keep it there, but then that'll keep this angle really sharp, so I don't know. Building inspector's out. Hello. It is raining. I wasn't expecting you to be out here today. Bye. I'm carrying on. Oh, and the sun's coming out. Bush time. Bush time, baby. Last spaghetti. So now I've bolted them in on top as well as on the sides. Also cut down the middle bit so it's angled. There's a slight overlap obviously because of the way angles work, as the other piece is totally uncut and everything, but I don't really mind that. It's really, really small and not that noticeable. So once it's all cleaned up, I'll get a bit more paint on that just to tie it in. There are a few places on top as well where I've scuffed it, so it's come back to being green. However, they're really not noticeable. I've also put the other piece on of ridge, and it's a shallower angle, so I'm going to have to go in across, and as I bolt that down, it's basically just going to be folding it down. I could take it off and bend it with a bit of wood or something, but I think I'd rather just do it whilst it's in place. And sort of the only thing now to do is just trim that edge. And pretty much the end of the day is how it looks. All framed off. Tiny bit of bending in the middle, I don't really mind that. And I've linked the gutters all up again. Do you know what? It actually looks really rather good now. It's just nice having that particular job tied up and finished. There's the join up there. I've spray painted join, and I sanded down these bits as well and painted those. But yeah, getting there, another job ticked off.
And here's the breakdown of everything that I've spent. So all the stud work, all the timber for the roof came to a total of £192.52. The OSB came to £79.78. On top of what I had left over, I needed to get some more screws, and that came to £32.86. Once again, I had some roofing underlay left over from how I did walls, but I'll show you that next time. That came to £22.49. The flashband tape and primer actually came to a total of about £19, I think, but I ended up also having to spend just over 10 quid on some tape whilst I was waiting for the flashing to arrive. I didn't want any water getting into the roof. So all the guttering came to a total of £75.17, and that was a bit of a shock how much that was, but it's a big but. It's the water butt came in at just under £30. And then going on to the metal bits for the roof. So I ended up buying 4 packs of 14 roofing sheets in the end, and that came to a total of £203.27. And then for the lovely green Barge Flashing, that was £90.48, including delivery, and this was a lot cheaper than it would have been to buy any sort of anthracite grey flashing. The Ridge Flashing was £55.39, and again, it's the same sort of case. It was so much more everywhere else, so this is quite a steal. And then the spray paint, I bought 2 cans of spray paint to coat them, and that came to just under 20 quid. Which gives us a grand total for all of the roof of £828.92, which is really not bad going, considering I could have absolutely done it cheaper if I went with a flat rubber roof, but then I'd lose out on loads of storage space and it wouldn't look anything like as good. And then working this in with our budget of £4,000 so far, we have a remaining budget of £2,079.97, which means that we've got pretty much the whole structure so far. And of course, I haven't shown bits like the feather edge. This is going to come next time, and I'm very sorry about that. But anyway, thank you once again for watching this. Thank you for your lovely comments in the last one. I will reply to anyone, so if you do have any questions, pop them below. And if you enjoy sort of following me along with my antics, then do just leave a cheeky like. Anyway, see you next time.